So welcome now in more peace and Zen mode. And I have my guest today, Robin Sharma. Hi, Robin. Can I just say I'm so happy to have you here, especially despite all the technical issues. Oh, you have been muted. Let me unmute you. I hope I can do that. Bianca, if you're still, oh, yes, thanks.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure, Christina. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I will give an official introduction to Robin, but I suppose that maybe Robin is one of those guests who doesn't need an introduction because you are a legend, and being a book club, I guess you are a very prolific writer, author of, by now, I believe 15 books, but I might be mistaken with the number. And I would also add that some of your books are already considered classics, as in, the curriculum in different places, where this is the book you have to read, and it's by Robin Sharma. And among some of the probably most famous books are The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and The 5 a.m. Club and The Leader Without the Title. And in total, I think it has been dozens of millions of books sold already around the world, with a lot of books being translated into more than 20 languages, as far as I know. Robin is widely considered as probably the most famous leadership guru and also self-mastery guru. And Robin has worked with celebrities, of course, very amazing, accomplished people and companies which are household names in US and across the world. And considering the topic of our today's conversation, I guess I should add also that Robin is also a philanthropist, has a wonderful, beautiful family, a loving partner, and lives an amazing life. So, Robin, just add if I've missed something.
Well, thank you. That's a great introduction. And I just want to say, perhaps on the introduction, maybe it'll sound strange, but I have a life I'm very grateful for, but I don't want anyone to think that my life is perfect. And I think what makes a great life is we have these times on the top of the mountain, and we get to celebrate those. Then we have challenging times, and it's that old idea: a bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. So whenever I hear something like an amazing life, I don't want anyone to think that. It's a very human life too.
Yeah, I guess I use the word amazing, but maybe I should have come up with a little bit more colorful word for that. We are talking about your latest book, which was published this year, The Wealth That Money Cannot Buy. And I don't normally ask my guests this question, but considering your accomplishments in book writing, I want to ask. So when you have written already quite a few remarkable books and you write again, is it the form of self-expression, or is it still in service because you feel that you want to make this world a better place?
That's a great point. It's both. So I only write books when I'm inspired and when I feel excited to write a new book, because I think the energy that you bring to anything, whether it's an app or a book or a screenplay or a meal, whoever is consuming it, they feel that energy. I love going for great Italian food sometimes, and when the meal is great, sometimes get a chance to thank the chef, and I say, what's your winning formula, or what's your secret? And he or she always says, oh, I cook with love. So when you're excited and you work with love, people feel it. And but also it's to serve. And when I was growing up, my father, whose father was a priest, used to often say, just help as many people as possible and serve as many people as possible. So I have this platform, and I want to keep on writing as many books as I can until my last breath.
So as I was reading your book, I've noticed that you are keeping it in the style of conversation, as if you're inviting the reader to be part of your life, at least in that journey of writing the book. So why such an approach? Do you actually feel the reader? And you mentioned a few times that I'm still going to be there, even if I'm at a distance. Do you feel that your readers, or is it more to help you communicate what you have to say?
I think the more inner work I do, Christina, the more comfortable I become in my own skin. And the more comfortable I become in my own skin, the more I feel close. I feel so close to my readers. And so what I tried to do in this book, The Wealth Money Can't Buy, is, you're right, structure it like a mentoring conversation, as
Mm-hmm.
if the reader was in my home with me for a period of time, where I get to share the lessons I've learned about creativity and productivity and peacefulness and living a rich life. And so I think this, I just felt comfortable enough to set this up as a very intimate conversation, even though it's a book. But I just felt I'd like to bring people into my life and not only be home with me, but on the road with me. And I just thought that would allow me to connect more with the reader.
Yeah, it does. It does leave an impression of shadowing your life for a short while. I have to ask, why such a choice of conversation? I know it's a very important topic, of course, but it also feels a little bit like a conclusive book, as in, like, let me explain to you how to live a rich life, and rich, of course, in many different aspects than just a rich life. Why this topic right now? What pushed you to write this book?
Well, and I sure hope the book didn't come across as "let me explain to you," because I always, I never want to make it seem like any of my books, whether it's the 5am Club or this new book or the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, I never want to preach to anyone. I mean, the great thing about a human life is we get to create it on our own terms. And yeah, everyone has their own philosophy. I just shared mine. Why this book right now? Well, our society really has programmed us to hustle and grind our way to the mountaintop of success, which in many ways is defined as having a lot of money and a lot of likes and a lot of things. And the only challenge with that is, I've seen many people, they get to that mountaintop and they say, is that it? I've spent the last 15 plus years mentoring billionaires and celebrity CEOs and sports stars, and many of them have what most of us would think is everything in the world, and they have nothing because they have a lot of money but not much else. And so that's really what The Wealth Money Can't Buy is all about. It's about the 8 forms of wealth model that I've been teaching to these elite performers for 15 plus years. Money is one of the 8 forms of wealth. Money is important to handle our responsibilities, to put food on the family table, to do things for people we love. But there are 7 other forms of wealth that are very, very important. And I think without these other 7 forms of wealth, we can't really say we have a rich life.
Mm-hmm. So I do not know how many of you guys have managed already to read the book, because we do announce our interviews just about 5 days before the interview. But if you're planning to read, we are not going to give any spoilers. We'll just talk about the book. So, Robin, can you walk us through the 8 wealths, or 8 forms of wealth that money cannot buy, for those who haven't read the book yet?
Sure. First form of wealth is not so commonly talked about, but it's something you and Mindvalley are so good at, and it's growth. And again, our society doesn't say, oh, here's someone who meditates and visualizes and journals and heals and nature walks and is time in solitude and is consistently developing their gifts and their talents. That person's rich. But I mean, I think that's one of the greatest ways to feel you're living a rich life and to truly be rich, to be building intimacy with your finest self. So the first form of wealth is growth, about 20 chapters on the best studies I've learned to maximize your primal genius. Second form of wealth is wellness. So we know that, well, someone once said to me at a live event, they said, they passed me a piece of paper, and on the paper it said, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the ill person can see. So you could have all the money in the world, but if you don't have energy, longevity, and good health, again, you have nothing. Third form of wealth is family. So you want to live a rich life, have a great family life, have great friendships, have wonderful human connections. And if you're an entrepreneur, have great relationships with your suppliers, with your clients. In my life, I would fly 10 hours for a 10-minute meeting to show the client how much I value them. Fourth form of wealth, it's craft. Whether you are an astronaut, whether you are a farmer, whether you are a teacher, whether you're an entrepreneur, no matter what you do, all labor has dignity. And in a world where a lot of people don't value their work anymore, seeing your work as an opportunity for mastery and to pursue the jagged edges of your talents and to create value for other people is a form of riches money can't buy. Fifth form of wealth is money. Like I said, there's about 20 or 25 chapters on everything I've learned from billionaires I've mentored for 15 plus years. Sixth form of wealth is community. So surrounding yourself with people whose lives you want to be living is very powerful. It's a form of wealth. And stripping out the energy vampires and the dream stealers is very powerful. Seventh form of wealth is adventure. That could be travel, could be intellectual adventures, spiritual adventures. And the eighth form of wealth is service, living for a cause that's larger than yourself. So you're using your life well in service of others is absolutely a currency that money can't buy.
Mm. So I will maybe share a few words to people who are going to read this book. I actually I read all the books before I do interviews. That's the promise that I give. And I want to say that, as Robin just explained, that in each part of the book there are lessons, 20 or more lessons about this particular part. And the way it's written, it's like little mentorship conversations, sometimes a little longer, and sometimes maybe just very quick conversation, by the shot of espresso in the morning. And it reads very, very lightly in the sense that you get to experience being with Robin and listening to his wisdom. So I do strongly recommend. I have been enjoying this book. So thank you, Robin. I feel that I've spent this past few days with you. But I do want to ask a little bit maybe unfair question, maybe that would be the right word. But first, those who are taking part in this session live, I invite you to use the chat down here and actually write in which area of wealth you think you're lacking and maybe you are poor. Of the 8 areas that Robin just mentioned, it's growth, it's wellness, it's family, it's craft, money. You'll have to help me a little bit after money, community, service, and I'm missing something.
Adventure.
Adventure, of course, adventure. So do leave a note which of the wealth maybe you're lacking in. And the unfair question for Robin. I know you're talking about that they're all important, but if there was this hypothetical situation where you had to sacrifice everything else, but one form of wealth was the one that would be left to you, which is that most important that you think is the basis for everything else?
Well, it's a hard question. It's a very good question, and it's going to depend on each reader. For me, personal growth, the first form of wealth, really is the foundation of everything. I would have said service because it's so dear to my heart to be helpful to as many people as possible, because life is ultimately very short. We end up as dust. But if we've helped people, then I think we've lived a rich life. But I really do believe the first form of wealth, growth, is everything. I mean, our income, our impact reflects our self-identity and our personal narrative. And we can go to some of the science of the positive psychologists who talk about the personal story. And if we behave in a way aligned with the way we see the world, and if we don't think we can make a difference, if we don't think we can start the business, if we don't think we can grow into our greatest selves, then we're not going to do the work required to get there. So I think and our life does reflect our beliefs. Our life reflects our emotional life. There's, in my work, I call it the 4 interior empires. So many people talk about mindset. Mindset's important, but I also believe in heart set, which is our emotional life, and health set, which is our physical life, and soul set, which is our spiritual life. And so when we calibrate and optimize those 4 interior empires, steadily, and no one gets all the way. I think if you do, you're enlightened. If you are working on your mindset and your heart set and your health set and your soul set day by day, incrementally, then everything you touch on the outside is reflected by that. If you work on your spiritual life, so you really turn down the voice of the ego and you really care about doing amazing work that serves, if you really work on your emotional life so you become braver, well, then obviously you're going to build a greater business. You're going to seize opportunities. You work on your health set, you'll have more energy to execute around your ethical ambitions. So I think the most important of the forms of wealth would be personal growth.
I guess that's why you're starting with it. But, you know, I have to say that before coming for the interview, I was thinking for myself that same very question, which would I would choose. But I thought, you know, like on a personal level, I would really like to choose health, because if health is there, everything else seems like a fixable thing. But somewhere deep inside, the wiser version of me said, no, Christina, it's growth, because if you lose health, at least growth can save the situation. So I agree with you, actually.
And I would actually say that we all agree that health is incredibly important. And yet sometimes we sabotage our project to take care of our health because of our own inner demons or trauma or limited beliefs. And so maybe the answer, how can you reconcile all of the 8 forms of wealth, is that when we work on our personal growth, we remove some of our self-sabotaging elements, which allows us to access our power. And when we access our power, we can then execute around something like taking care of our health, eating better, etc.
So thank you for this answer. And, you know, I wanted to ask maybe a little bit connecting question. How much are these different areas actually interrelated? As in our society, I'm trying to explain where I'm leading it. In our society, we often think that, for example, to achieve great success in money or even in craft, you have to give up some other areas in your life. So we believe that, you know, you have to sacrifice something so that you succeed somewhere else. But in your experience, since you've worked with so many people, so many teams, how interconnected they actually are? Does giving up another area make you more successful in, I mean, we're talking about eight areas. If you give up, let's say 4, are you more successful in the other 4? Or is it the reverse? Are you actually going to suffer?
I believe that when you are working on all 8 forms of wealth, it's an upward spiral of success. So, you know, if you have a great family life, for example, and you feel loved and you have people that you love and you have a strong home foundation, of course, you're going to do so much better in business. When are we not great in business? When there's drama at home, when we have a great adventure life, the 7th form of wealth. So maybe we're taking travels, or we take a sabbatical, or once a week, we take a day off and we go out to an art gallery to get inspired. We're going to be better in the other areas. Obviously, when we're fit, we're going to be so much better in the other. So all of the 8 forms of wealth and the wealth money can't buy, they all work together to create an upward spiral of success. And I deeply believe, and I've experienced it with my clients and myself, that you can achieve harmony in all of the 8 forms of wealth. And it comes down to your systems. It comes down to being a minimalist, not saying yes to every opportunity. It comes down to removing the distraction and trivial pursuits from your life. It comes down to having a great weekly scheduling process. When you get these systems right, you can focus on all 8 forms of wealth versus having to make the sacrifices that you're talking about.
So if someone is facing, and this question is not strictly speaking related to the book, but a little bit wider on the topic, if someone is facing a very stressful or complicated situation, let's say at work, because this is the most relatable for a lot of us, how to not fall prey to this tendency to sabotage everything else, to put the rest of your life on hold and just, you know, dive into this one area and try to sort it out and let the rest of the world burn. How do you actually prevent yourself from slipping into this one-sided approach to your life?
I think it comes down to your habits. So let's say you're having a difficult time at work. If you've got habits like meditation, if you've got habits like taking a day or 2 off, if you've got a strong family foundation, the 3rd form of wealth, if you have a habit, there's a protocol that I teach called the second wind workout, for example, a nature walk at the end of the workday. Those kinds of habits are very powerful so that you don't get consumed by the work issue. And then, you know, just to bring some tactical value to your many listeners and members of the book club, Christina, every morning, in my journal, I have a protocol called the 5-question morning maximizer. And we can get into it if you like. It's been very helpful for
Yes.
my clients and myself, but I'll just run through the 5 questions that I answer every morning in my journal. First question is, what am I grateful for? We all know the power of gratitude. We can talk about some of the science, but what am I grateful for? Second question, where am I winning? Because the negativity bias of the human brain causes us to focus on where we're losing versus where we're winning. So this is a deliberate strategy to cause your brain to focus on your micro wins so you build a momentum. Third question, what will I let go of today? It's a very powerful healing question. What will I let go of today? Might be someone who betrayed you in the past, might be a difficult issue at work that's bringing you down, might be a resentment that you're carrying, but writing about it will allow you to process through it. Fourth question, what does my ideal day ahead look like? This is what I call a pre-performance paragraph. You build a little paragraph about your intent for the day ahead, which gives you more focus, clarity, and discipline. And then the fifth question is, what needs to be said at the end? So in other words, you write a paragraph about what you want to be said about you on the day after you pass away. Why am I mentioning this protocol, especially the fifth question? Because if you do this every day, Christina, you're going to be very intimate with your mortality. And the more intimate you can become with the shortness of life, the more you're going to have perspective. And when you have perspective and you realize no matter how long you get to live, we will all be dust and none of us really matter that much, then a work issue, it doesn't mean we neglect it, but it doesn't have the charge that it could normally have. Because you say, look, at the end, I'm going to be dead before I know it. Let me not worry about it too much.
So for our listeners, if you find these ideas inspiring and something, you could implement right away, then I can tell you that the book is full of, actually, I haven't calculated how many chapters you have there, but pretty much every chapter comes with some practical habits which you can implement in your life. In fact, I'll give you a testimonial for today. As I was reading some of the chapters, I really love when you talked about walking as one of the important aspects of your health, of your wellness, because I remember when, in harder times, usually it really helps me to calm down. And it just happens so that my dad is in the surgery right now, and I was witnessing my mom being very, very stressed. So I was reading a book. I came down like, Mom, get out, walk in the park, make a few rounds. And she was like, I'm so nervous. But, it's literally, it's so wonderful when you can read the book, and just as you read, you can start improving your life right there on the spot and help, the people in your life, your loved ones also to improve. So thank you, Robin, for giving this, this wonderful lifesaver in the situation when we needed it. And there are many more like that, of course. Now, if you don't mind, what I wanted to do, and I know we don't have all that much time, but if we could go through a few of the parts and dive a little deeper into them. I do not know if we can have all the 8 parts, but we'll start with growth. And what I want to ask is, you work with so many people. What is the main reason why people are poor when it comes to personal growth, wealth? I do not know if my question is clear.
No. It's very clear. And it's very good. I just want to say, first of all, hope your father recovers very well. And secondly, walking sounds very simple, but it's if you look at the most creative people in the world, most productive people in the world, one of Steve Jobs' favorite ways to do a meeting was a walking meeting. But anyone who's listening or watching who is not walking on a daily basis, I would love for them to try it, especially in nature. A lot of good science about what it does in terms of releasing serotonin and dopamine and what it does to reduce inflammation in the body. But going for
by the way, I walked to the office through the park because obviously I was reading the book.
Yeah, it's for 30 plus years of my adult life, I've walked almost every day in nature. And it allows me to listen to a podcast if I want, or listen to an audiobook. Often I'll just let my mind roam, but I'll carry a little journal with me. And the ideas that I download, because it puts me in the flow state. So walk, and obviously it allows you to stay healthy as well. So your question about the personal growth and why do people fall into poverty of personal growth? It's a great question. And I think because society defines success in other ways. Society, in many ways, says you are successful, and to live a meaningful life, you've got to make a lot of money and have a big house and eat in the nice restaurants and have a lot of social media followers. And so these are the metrics of success we've almost been hypnotized into believing. But like I say, I mean, real poverty is not spending a little bit of time every day building intimacy with your gifts and your talents. I really do believe the wealth money can't buy. And part of it is the more you can grow into your authenticity, the more you can live by your values, even if you're an army of one, the more you can release your limiting beliefs and your micro or macro trauma and step into your bravery and your power so that you do life on your own terms. I mean, what's more powerful than that? You know, there's a lot of very rich people, and what do? They're living their neighbor's life. They're living society's life. They're subconsciously living their mother or father's lives. And they're wondering why they have all the money in the world, but they're not happy. And then you have people who might not have a lot of financial resources, but they're very comfortable in their own skin. And we could even talk about self-love. I mean, what's more powerful than loving yourself? I know people who have billions and they're not happy. So personal growth also involves optimizing happiness. What's the point of having yachts and jets and islands and but you're living in misery? I mean, I talked about it in The Wealth Money Can't Buy, but one of the richest people I've ever met was my ski instructor. And he said, Robin, we're not rich, but we live rich lives. He had a great family and he loved his craft and what he did. And he ate healthy food and he was in the mountains every day. I mean, that man's a master.
You know, the one chapter which struck me was actually in the beginning of the money portion. You were talking about this billionaire. Unfortunately, I forgot the name. Something like Howard or the guy who was super rich and super successful, but very miserable. It really struck me, honestly. What's your experience? How not to slip into that? Because we do chase success, even if we keep in mind that our well-being, our happiness matters, but we do sometimes get carried away. So how do you avoid this trap of actually being so disconnected from the life outside that you don't even notice how miserable you are?
Well, so it's Howard Hughes that you were referring to, and you know, he was a great innovator and an incredible entrepreneur, but and I say this with a lot of respect, but from what I read, he died with needles in his arms, alone in a hotel room in Las Vegas. And he was the visionary who in many ways created Las Vegas. He saw what it could be. So it's a big question. How can we not get off track and live society's life and instead live our finest life and a truly rich life based on these 8 forms of wealth that I've been teaching to many of the world's most successful people for 15 years. And there's a few things, but one thing I would say is have a great morning routine, because a great morning routine allows you the time to think. If you just wake up and start the day, you're going to be running after the day. But if you get up early, and I've encouraged people to get up to join the 5 a.m. club, or it could be 6 a.m., it could be 4 a.m. But finding some time while the rest of the world is asleep before your day gets busy to write in a journal, to read something wise, to reflect will allow you to build awareness about how you want to live and what a great life is to you. Second thing I would say is, you know, your social circle is incredibly powerful. We can talk about the science of emotional contagion and mirror neurons, which causes us to mimic the behavior. My little dog just came into the room here. Which causes us to mimic the behavior of the people that we're around. But if we're around people who measure success purely by money or social media likes or being in the right restaurant, then we're going to behave like those people. Related to that, I would say do a serious inventory and audit of who you follow on social media, because we do become our conversations. We do become our associations. And then
I follow you, Robin.
Good. I hope I bring you Good value, Christina. So I think that's important as well. And then the final thing I would say is, how do you not get off track? You you give yourself permission to make it okay to be off track. It's
Mhm.
okay to get off track. The key is to every day try to come back on track and be thoughtful about the life that you're living. A lot of people, I'm not judging, I'm just reporting, but they're busy being busy, and they're spending their days on social media or watching videos or chasing trivial pursuits. And to
Mhm.
pull back from the noise so you can hear the signal on a daily basis allows you, when you get off track, to bring yourself back on track.
Mhm. Yes, thank you for this answer. I was actually, I like this last bit because I was also thinking of the situations when we are pressed for a decision, and sometimes like very simple scenario, you know, which career to choose. Should I go into something which fulfills my heart? And it might be music or art. And, you know, there's the well-meaning community that says you can't make money in arts. It's hard. Why don't you go and study law? I know you started also as a lawyer. So in these kind of choices, don't we tend to still gravitate towards the so-called successful or socially more valuable choices rather than what makes you happy? And do you need to really live a long life to finally find the wisdom that ultimately it's happiness that matters?
Sure. I personally, I think it's a very poor trade
Mm,
to trade your happiness and your soulfulness for a pile of cash. I don't know anyone who has betrayed their instincts and their enthusiasms, and who has made money, who is happy by that, trade. So no one's saying that there's anything wrong with prosperity and being financially successful, and that's why it's the fifth form of wealth and the wealth money can't buy. But personally, I mean, I think when you betray your soul, I believe that your intuitions and your instinct is so much more powerful than your intellect. And our
mm,
intellect it's what you're talking about. Our intellect says, do what society says, do what our parents brought us up to do in terms of being a doctor, lawyer, whatever it might be. But what I've found is when you do what lights you up, you light up the world.
mm,
And it also makes me think, Christina, about Vincent van Gogh. Vincent
mhm,
van Gogh, he he was laughed at, by his painting. People didn't get it. He only sold one painting I think it was one or two, excuse me, but
mhm,
one or two paintings in his entire life. He wasn't validated by the crowd, but he continued to pursue his enthusiasm and follow his instincts and where his soul was leading, even
mhm,
though he was laughed at. But he did it because he was in integrity. And I think
mhm,
when even if no one gets you, even if you're laughed at and ridiculed, because they laugh and ridicule all of the great visionaries until they revere them, sometimes only after they're dead, like Vincent van Gogh. But I think, what's more powerful, I think, having a rich inner life and
mhm,
fueling your soul and honoring your values and your vision. I think that's so much more valuable than following society's definition of how you should be successful and perhaps making money, but losing yourself along the way. And just to quickly reply to the second part of your question, I don't think you have to get old to be wise. There are 25-year-olds who are incredibly wise, and there are 90-year-old people who are repeating the same mistakes that they repeated when they were 20. So I think
mhm,
you can really collapse the learning curve by following podcasts like yours and Mindvalley's, by reading books, by having a great mentor, by going to conferences. All those things are, and paying attention to your life, writing in a journal, meditating, visualizing, and praying. All those personal growth strategies allow us to build wisdom in a much quicker way. And then obviously learning from life. I mean, I think a difficulty is only a difficulty if you see it as a difficulty. It's the most
mhm.
painful experiences that allow us to accelerate our wisdom, knowledge, and growth.
By the way, as a face of Mindvalley Book Club, I want to thank you personally for including at least 2 chapters that I can think of, which are dedicated why reading books actually advances you in personal growth. And I think it was in another section as well. So thank you for that. It's my heart's desire to see more people reading more books and less garbage, if I can say so. Now, I want to make a little sidestep and ask, have you had to make decisions in your life where the convention would say you're being crazy and you are maybe gambling with success? Have you had such decisions, but you trusted your intuition, and what gave you that confidence to just go ahead?
All the time, all
All
the
the
time.
time.
When I was starting out as an unknown author, so I self-published my book in The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, in a 24-hour copy shop. And I was a litigation lawyer by profession, with in a very good position and very successful. And to leave it as an unknown author and go to Rotary clubs and Optimist clubs to tell people about my book and the philosophy that the book was based on, people were calling me foolish. People were making fun of me. People were, booksellers were laughing at the title and saying, you're completely anonymous. Ha 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 ha. So you've just got to continue and get better at your craft and believe in yourself when no one else believes in you, until through your efforts and the value creation, people believe in you. And then maybe a more recent example, for many years, I've wanted to paint.
Mm.
And so I took some of the summer off this year, and I went to South Africa, and I found a studio, and I bought the paint and the drawing tools. And for about 5 or 6 hours every day, for about a month, I painted, and I created a lot of different artworks. And it's not only a passion for me, it's become a new career. And so whether people like what I do or not, I'm trying to be honest with my own creative and artistic expression. And, I love it when I do it. And I find art very healing. And I like what I do. I mean, there's a lot, for the past few weeks, I haven't been very inspired. So a lot of what I've been creating hasn't been very good. But yesterday I had a really good day. And so I only offer that to say, you've got to trust your instinct, even if no one thinks you have a chance. You've got to do what lights you up and brings joy, because I think joy is a great GPS. And when people laugh at you, I think it's important to remember that they laugh at anyone who left the status quo and pursued an unreasonable vision. And it makes me think of what George Bernard Shaw said. He said, and I'll quote his words, and he said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. And I think we must be unreasonable with ourselves. And I think too often we're living our lives designed to fit, to seek approval from everyone. But I think you can seek approval from the world, or you can live your richest life, but you can't do both.
I want to talk a little bit about nuances, because we've been talking for a while now about how you have to trust your intuition and follow what lights you up. But you're also, you're also the self-mastery guru. I actually don't like the word guru, but I can't come up with a different one. Well, the leading, thought leader, the trailblazer. So what I want to say is that you do talk also about doing things which you don't want to do but need to be done. So how do you make the distinction between, I am just following my intuition and doing what lights me up versus I don't know, avoiding doing the things that need to be done?
Well, it's a balance, isn't it? And I think the more you know yourself, the more you can discern what is something you should do to honor your gifts, your talents, your vision, your highest life. Those things, I think you need to do those. but no one's suggesting, and a lot of the Wealth Money Can't Buy is like the craft section. The fourth form of wealth is all about productivity. And there's a lot about how do you get what I call your Project X, your Taj Mahal, your Sistine Chapel ceiling, your Mona Lisa. How do you get it done? And that does require you to do difficult things. This book, The Wealth Money Can't Buy, I wrote it.
Oops.
I wrote.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I wrote it over about 12 months last year. And I can tell you, I call it a beautiful suffering, but it was a very, very hard book to write. You say it's, when you're reading it, it was simple. It took me 12 months of my life, 20 different versions of the manuscript, relentless editing, iterating and optimizing to make it simple, to strip out the complexity. So it was a very hard book to write. It took a lot out of me, and I went all in. So no one's saying that, a rich life is an easy life. And I think, I'd say hard is easy and easy is hard. Our society wants us to do easy things, but we end up living a hard life because we take the easy path. When you do difficult things, get up early, have a great morning routine, treat people well, do your work beautifully, run towards your fears versus resist them, do hard workouts, read difficult books. I just finished reading 1984. When you read those difficult books, those are the books that have the real payoff. So I think I'm in no way saying that we should take the easiest path.
Well, yeah, I guess a little reiteration of that thought is that maybe it is easy to read because you've put so much work and it was hard for you to write. And while it speaks easily and lightly, it does share some of very profound life wisdoms for those who are still haven't read it yet. I do recommend you read it. You will find it on Amazon. We have shared the link with you guys as well, so you can go and get yourself the book. As a fresh author myself, I know that, and I know you've sold millions of books, but I think there's no better compliment to an author than a new reader or someone picking up your book and reading it. So get it, read it, and do take pictures and and tag Robin. At least that's from my personal experience. I really love when people share stories about your book. So I have to check the time. Oh my God, we passed the time, and I had promised to go into into different areas. I'll still ask one more question since we started a little later. So forgive me. So in your experience, which of the 8 areas is the least developed among people? I have my own guess, but I wonder what would you say?
In all the interviews I've done this year, I've never been asked that question. It's a great question. I would say off the top of my head, and I say this very respectfully, but I would say service. And sometimes I'll talk about service, and people will say, well, if I'm kind to people, I hear this sometimes. Well, if I'm kind to people, people will take advantage of me. But I think people only take advantage of you if you let them take advantage of you, and you don't know how to set boundaries. But there's a quote I often share my dad used to say when I was growing up, and it's, Robin, when you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice. And no one's saying you can't have beautiful things. A lot of the book is on lifestyle. No one's saying that you can't do good for yourself and your family. Of course, that's incredibly important, and to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But to also cultivate within your heart and soul through prayer, meditation, reading, study, solitude, a love of service. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is absolutely practical. The more you can fall in love with creating rich streams of value for as many people as possible, the more your consumers are going to fall in love with what you do. But being an instrument of service, and my heroes are people like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi. But I'll just end with, my life changed when I stood in Nelson Mandela's prison cell on Robben Island a number of years ago. And the guide who was showing me around Robben Island and Nelson Mandela's prison cell, he said, yeah, I knew Nelson Mandela. I served with him here on Robben Island for 7 years. And I said, what was he like? And Christina, he paused and he smiled and he said, "Oh, that man was a humble servant." And if we could make it more popular and cooler and more sensational to be a humble servant, it doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're strong. No matter what you do, you don't need to be a state leader or a CEO or a billionaire. You can be a gardener in your community who is quietly trying to uplift people's lives. And when you do that, it's not only going to give you a rich life and you not only inspire other people, but actually, I think it's one of the greatest ways to find happiness and inner peace, being helpful to other people. It's often overlooked. I don't think it's a value that's super popular, but I think it's very, very important. So the 8th form of wealth out of the 7 forms of wealth in the book.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have to be finishing, and this has been a very interesting session with our pictures jumping the whole time. But I'm glad to have seen also our audience. And traditionally, I want to ask our audience to leave a heart for my guest. If you're live right now with us, leave in the chat. I hope it's still visible. And if you're watching it in recording later, then do leave your heart and your love under the video, because there's never too much love, I think, in this world. Robin, I want to also thank you for coming, joining this book club and talking about your book. I wish this book also as much success as your previous books had, and I can see that it's already huge. So thank you so much, and I guess particular thanks for just who you are, the way you lightened up this day and supported, and for your deep wisdom and just making this world a more beautiful place. Actually, I will ask the last question. I like to ask this question of my guests. How would you like this book to change the world?
I'd like people to understand that their money is only one form of wealth. And most of us have been programmed to think money and material things are wealth. Nothing wrong with them. They can bring great joy in many ways, but there are 7 other forms of wealth that if we neglect them, I don't think we're going to live our richest life. And Christina, thank you for your time and all the good you do for so many. And I'm on an iPhone, so I can't see all the people, but I see Chantel right there. And I can just look at her face and see what a kind person. And I see Ari and Pratik and Martha and Aditha, and you have a lot of people in here. And I just want Diane, I see Diane Napolitano, and I see Diana Valandia. Sounds like un nome italiano, I could be wrong. And Pier Francesco, buona giornata or buonasera, but I wish I could meet all of your people because I have such respect and appreciation for people who are on this path that we're on. So Christina, to you and all your book readers, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bianca, for saving this situation, and Robin for joining me, and you guys for being here with your presence and your faces. And see you next week. Bye-bye.